You're listening to SaskScapes, a podcast featuring the stories of arts, culture, and heritage in Saskatchewan. In the town of Esterhazy stands one of Canada's national historical sites. The Esterhazy Flour Mill is the only remaining wood frame construction flour mill in the province. I'm Kevin Power, and my first guest is Ralph May, a local resident and member of the Friends of the Esterhazy Flour Mill, a dedicated group of volunteers who proudly maintain one of our provincial treasures. After a guided tour with Ralph, we head over to the Esterhazy Museum, where Ralph has arranged for me to meet two local residents, Jim Millam and Ray Bradley. The three of us had a great time as they reminisced about growing up in the area, and believe me, we laughed a lot. These are treasured memories that deserve to be remembered. Memories about making your own fun without our modern technology, learning to live without the things we take for granted today, and the hard work of growing up on the farm during the Depression years. Enjoy the podcast. So today I'm in Esterhazy, and I'm with Ralph May, who is going to take me through the Esterhazy Flour Mill. Ralph, you were just telling me that this has now been designated not only a provincial heritage site, but a national heritage site.
That's correct, yeah. We have a plaque that was presented by appropriate dignitaries 2 years ago.
And that's a lot of paperwork to make that happen.
A lot of paperwork. We went then, 2 changes in government, so we waited some period of time before they...
Right.
But it's an old building. It's not going anywhere, so that's fine.
Right. How long have you been chief cook and bottle washer around the flour mill here?
I got involved with the place here about... Oh my goodness, 15 years ago. 16. Right. And I'm not chief of anything.
But a group of volunteers, probably a group of dedicated volunteers.
It's a group of volunteers, absolutely.
As with everywhere.
I happen to be the chairman, but that's sort of because nobody else wants it or whatever.
Right. You must feel a tremendous sense of pride having that national designation.
Yes, it did. We did good.
Yeah. So we're just going inside the flour mill here.
So this is the office.
Uh-huh.
So the last guy actually lived in here. There would have been a cot here.
Oh.
And this desk, which is original.
Right.
It wasn't here when we started working, but when we got it fixed up, people had come in and said it's going to get damaged. They took it home, and then they brought it back to us. So that's the kind of support we've had in town.
Now, when you say the guy that would work here would he live here as well?
Well, some of them did, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the one guy, Otto Rosler, was the last guy that... milled here.
Right. When did this cease to be a functioning mill?
We think about 1979.
Right.
We're not sure exact. There was another guy who owned it for a while, but I don't think he milled any flour.
And it started
in 1907, June of 1907.
So it was a significant part of the economy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Before this mill was put in, people went to Whitewood, which is 30 miles from here.
Right.
We heard stories of people putting grain in a bag on a toboggan and walking to Whitewood and getting flour and bringing it back.
No kidding.
And when this got established, because the Hungarian settlement, Kaposvár out here,
right,
where there was 2 townships set aside for Hungarian settlement.
Right.
And the Kaposvár Church was established in 1886, I think it was. So that was the start here.
Yeah.
And then the railway came in here, and then they wanted the mill out there, is my story. Whether that happened or not, it didn't happen, but whether that's true or not, it came here.
Right.
And the railway came through here.
And the flour that they milled here would be distributed all over the province? Or
it was all across Canada, particularly during the war.
Right.
Or wars.
Right.
Because 1907 and on.
Right.
And then And, of course, around town here and so on and so forth.
So a major source of revenue.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a meeting place for people that came to town, dropped off their wheat. They would take home flour, but not their own flour because it takes probably a day and a half to get it prepared and milled. So
right. Does the railway still go through Esterhazy?
No, it's been removed right over here is where it used to be. Now it's a park, so that's nice.
Often the case in these
This is something I often point out. We have the titles to all the property from the time Esterhazy was formed. And this particular one is interesting.
So these are enlarged originals.
These are originals, but they're...
Right, yes. Yeah. Right, encased in plastic.
So this is Reverend Francis Woodcutter of Capispar, which is the church of their district of Assiniboine, because this wasn't even a province then.
Right.
In the Northwest Territories. And he was a priest. And on here gives a bit of information about what was owned. And on the back, it says who owned what and when it was paid off. And,
look at that. Wow.
So on and so forth. So there's lots of good information on this.
Right.
And again, my story is the church, this didn't get built out by Capispar.
Right.
But Francis owned all this property and he sold this to the railway. So all these individual lots were sold to the railway for the railway bed through here. So this is what the mill looked like when we started working on it.
Right.
And you can see what it looks like today.
Right. So tell me, was there quite a battle to even want to restore this? Were there segments of the town that wanted to just tear it down?
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, it was the guy walked away from it in 1981.
Right.
And it was empty basically for 15 years.
Right.
Pigeons and whatever were in there.
Right.
And then there was a fellow from Quebec who mills organic flour, and he owned some flour mills. Mm-hmm. And he was at a presentation in Virden, Manitoba, to organic farmers. And the mayor from here at the time, Scotty Breen, went to this meeting along with another fellow, and they said, we should show him this mill. Yeah. So they talked him into coming here, and he came and he made a very enthusiastic presentation about how if the mill got fixed up, he would buy it and our mill flour. And that got a committee going.
Oh, good. So he was able
And then about 2 years later, I joined that committee and I've been on it ever since. But, but he was certainly, and then he actually owned the place for a while. Mm-hmm. And then now the town owns it. It took a while to get it back.
And he's still an organic farmer?
I don't know. I haven't heard from him. So he walked away and we didn't clean it up.
I wondered if he had come back.
No, we never saw him again.
Wow.
And so in 2004, we got an award for the exterior work that we did.
Right.
Here's me shaking hands with the Lieutenant Governor.
And my dear, dear close friend, Linda.
Isn't she wonderful? Oh, man.
She's a great pal.
And there was a group of us went over to Munster, actually, is where the presentation took place. So this is some of the people on our committee.
So it was your 100th in 2007.
Yeah.
Right. And look, there's everybody dressed up in some original costumes.
This is two of the fellows that work at the mill all the time, Leo and Mike, and their wives. And then we've got a wagon in here that was donated to us from a farmer and bought it in 1917. So it's parked in here. And they had a little grinder and they were spewing flour at people on the parade route and stuff. It was quite neat.
Is there still a local bakery in Esterhazy that may have... No.
Oh. The only bakeries are in the grocery stores.
Oh, right. But probably at the time when this was functioning.
Absolutely, he delivered to the local people.
Yeah.
And it tells us here that, the mill started milling flour in 1907, June of 1907. This is one of the former early owners.
Right.
And there was also a story going around when I got involved that the mill in Whitewood was moved here. And that's actually written in the history book in Whitewood. Well, the mill in Whitewood burnt down in 1907. And this was milling in 1909. This one was milling in 1907. Oh. But what happened is the miller moved here. His name was Frank Size, and he lived in a house just over here. Had 5 children. Right. One of them was a teacher.
So this became their mill?
Well, the guy that owned the Whitewood Mill was James Sanders. Yeah. He owned this one as well, along with some other stuff. Right. And race horses or whatever horses in a feed store and what. Right. But he owned them. Right. And there's articles in the paper about him coming to check, and the materials weren't coming on time, so what else is new?
Right.
And so on. And So then he owned it, and then this Frank Size ended up owning it, but he was the miller here there was 2 people before him.
Right.
And he was here for a long time, 10 or 15 years maybe. And one of his daughters was a teacher and used to bring the kids over to play in the mill. And we said, well, wasn't it dangerous? Well, yeah, you got to be careful. We're not stupid.
Did you grow up in this?
No, I didn't. I came here to teach in 1971.
Oh, so it was not fun. You said
it was still functional in 71. We bought flour here and
did you?
Bought potato bags and whatever.
What did you teach?
Agriculture mainly to start. There was
that
a
right?
course called SAS Studies, and then I ended up teaching physics and math the last.
Is there a local college or on the high school?
No, that's a high school.
All right. And the high school's still here?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It was the biggest rural high school in the province.
Oh, right.
We had 750 kids from grades 7 to 12 when I came here.
Wow. Was the population of Esterhazy growing or getting smaller?
It does this.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. This is a nice little...
Oh, look at this.
Nobody's
this
carrying
is the vault.
Unless they bring...
the town safe.
Bring people along.
Right. But, right. Anyone know the combination?
Well, the story with that, you see this is nicely painted in here.
Yes.
We got it all cleaned up, painted. And
right.
A while later, somebody walked in and said, the combination of the safe was written on the wall up there.
Oh, no. So it's behind the paint.
So it's behind the paint.
Oh.
But I had a fellow came in, he said, if as long as it's open, they can get in the back and they can figure it out or reset it.
Right.
This would have been the original bags that were used.
Uh-huh.
Cotton bags with a paper cover.
Right.
And we've got a lot of souvenirs, but we didn't use all these colors. We just used...
Right.
2 colors.
That would make a great T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, we've got lots of T-shirts.
Yeah.
We have T-shirts.
Do you?
Yes.
Ralph is upselling me already.
So this is our office and
all right.
Where we sell, like we've got fridge magnets. We got local artists did this.
Right.
We sell prints of it.
Oh, nice.
Photography, we got history books.
That's a beautiful photo.
It is very nice, yeah. And this is sort of a postcard type of thing,
but
right. Not really.
Right.
And one of the guys that's going to talk to us today designed and made that. He does scroll work.
And is this authentic flour?
It's wheat.
Wheat, right.
Wheat in there. Then the DVD I talked to you about that's on
the office now. Yes, right.
And we make, we have a grinder and we make whole wheat flour and we sell it, but not in the mill here.
Oh, right.
It's away.
Right.
When we went to get our award in 2004, we took 2 pieces of Bristol board, and so that's what we had.
All right.
Up against people that did work on the University of Saskatchewan admin building.
Right.
But we all got the same award. And then we have barbecue aprons and carry bags and
lots of merchandise.
And grocery bags, replaceable. We got bird feeders. Like the flour.
Can you buy any of this stuff online as well? Can you order it on it?
Not yet, no.
So you got to come here.
Yeah. And like I said, T-shirts and golf shirts to fit just about anybody. We almost made the stamp.
Oh.
They came and took pictures of the flour mills of Canada. We made this first day cover thing, but we didn't get to be on a stamp. But and this book is this is a ledger from the mill in 1967. So it tells, this person brought in flour, how much he got credit for. Here he took more than he'd brought in, so it's in red. And we're actually putting this on a computer.
Oh.
So in theory, we can put in pictures of this guy if we find one, and when he brought and get all the.
So now you can figure out who still owes money. Okay, so now I am in the Esterhazy Museum, and I have with me 2 guests who are an important part of the history of this area. I'll let you both introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jim Ellum.
Jim Ellum. And
Ray Bradley.
Ray, great. So, Jim, tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you from Esterhazy?
Partly. I was here in 1936, and then we moved to the farm, and I lived south of Stockholm, which is like 12 miles away.
I just drove through there on my way here.
Yes.
Right.
So we were on a farm after that.
Right. So we're on the grounds basically of the flour mill, which Ralph took me over. So, what did the flour mill mean to you folks growing up in this area?
We didn't have a lot of contact with it. I know Dad took wheat in and gristed it on occasion, but we'd never come in with them.
Right.
So I didn't know a great deal about that.
Right. But what was the draw to be in this area? Was the farm in the family that you had already, or?
Yes, my grandfather lived in Esterhazy, and he bought and sold land.
Right.
So that's where my dad got it.
Right. So you grew up as a farm boy then?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So hard work.
Oh, there's a lot of hard work and some exciting times.
Right. And when did you stop farming?
Oh, when I graduated from high school, I went on to other things.
Right.
University and teaching.
Where did you go to university?
In Saskatchewan primarily.
And you studied what?
Oh, I got a degree in arts and in education.
And so you taught in the school system?
Yes.
What subject was your?
Oh, history was my subject.
Is that right?
Specifically Canadian history.
Right. So what's the most significant part of Canadian history that gets you excited?
Well, I was always interested in the settlement of the West in particular.
Right.
And that's what I worked in.
Right.
For a while, I was writing newspaper articles about Western Canadian settlement. Oh, I was involved with the history book primarily.
So
we spent about 6 years producing it.
Right. So Esterhazy now has its own history book.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And were you a contributor writing-wise, or did you edit that?
I was editor.
Right. In your estimation, what's the most significant part of Esterhazy's history? What would sort of be a turning point in Esterhazy's history?
Well, obviously the mill was the main turning point.
Right.
I'm sorry, the mine, I meant to say.
The mine.
The mill in earlier days, but that was about the time Esterhazy began.
Right. But the mine
The mine made a huge difference, yes.
Right. For the better.
For the better and for the worse.
For the better because of the economy?
Yes, it gave jobs to a lot of local people.
Yeah.
A lot of people stayed in farming because they could work in the mine and look after their quarter or half section of land at the same time.
Right.
Otherwise, they would be working in Ontario or somewhere.
Right. And what were the negative aspects of the mining industry?
Oh, the housing problem was, of course, a big one. Another one was taxes because of the huge expansion of the town.
Right.
And there were a number of people in the south end of town who had large lots. They had come in from the farm and they actually had a barn in the backyard and chickens and pigs and whatever. And their taxes went up tremendously.
Right.
And of course, they were on a fixed income.
So did that force a lot of people to have to sell the farms?
Hey, it's Kevin. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Just a quick reminder that the SaskScapes podcast is available for free on your favorite podcast app, or you can stream it from your browser. Check out the show notes for the link. On the SaskScapes homepage, you'll notice something new under the logo called SaskScapes Plus. You can't miss it. There's a big button saying support with a heart icon next to it. I'd love it if you could click on that button and help keep this podcast series going. When SaskScapes launched in May 2014, it was the first podcast in the province celebrating arts, culture, and heritage. In fact, you'd have been pretty hard-pressed to find any Saskatchewan podcasts. So I'd like to think that we paved the way. It's been because of your support that this podcast is now in its 9th year. Okay, that's it. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
No, I don't think so.
No. Growing up in this area, can you recall any stories of some of the more colorful people that lived in this neighborhood? I was in Fort Capel the day before yesterday, and speaking of one of the old timers there wasn't a person in that town that was born that was actually called by the name they were christened with. They had Stiffy the Undertaker, and everybody just called nobody knew what Stiffy's name really was. He was just always known as Stiffy. Were there colorful folks like that in this area?
Oh, yes.
Yes, tell me a bit about some of them.
Well, I didn't know this area particularly well.
Right.
My uncle said his neighbor wasn't a very good farmer. The fence kept blowing over, and he would go out and he'd lean one fence post this way, the next one the other way, and prop up the wire that way. So,
the quickest fix possible.
Yeah, the easiest.
That was before duct tape.
Yeah, that was true. That's true.
Right. And so what did you do for fun? Yeah.
Oh, on the farm?
Yeah, on the farm.
Yeah, softball was a big thing in school.
Right.
We all played softball, and we had a really good team. At home, we used to run all over the farm, shooting at each other with arrows and toy guns and so on.
Right. Were there animals on the farm? What kind of farm?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we had pigs and chickens, horses and cows.
Right. So were you supplying dairy?
No, the milk was for our own use. We had 4 boys in the family, so we
went through a lot of milk.
A lot of it, yes.
Right.
We were all great milk drinkers.
Right. And by this time, we're talking what year?
Okay, we were on the farm in 1937 until I left home in the mid-50s.
Right. 37 was the worst year.
We moved to the farm on July 5th, 1937, and my mother always said it was the hottest day of the hottest year. And I checked on the internet, and it was
right
107 degrees.
No kidding.
And Yellow Creek and I think it was Melfort set a record of 111, which is still today the record for Canada.
Right.
So
they were the worst of times.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
How'd you keep a stiff upper lip during times like that?
Well, we didn't know we were poor.
Uh-huh.
Everybody else was the same. So
right.
We didn't feel singled out in any way.
Right.
In fact, some were worse off than we were.
So you didn't feel like you were without?
No.
Right.
We weren't to a great extent, because when we moved to the farm, we had a huge vegetable garden.
Right.
We had all kinds of berries around the farm.
Right.
And we picked them and canned them for the winter, like everyone did.
Right.
So, yeah, we provided a lot for ourselves.
Yeah, you're pretty self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have to rely on coupons. Well, the coupons came out during the war.
Yes.
Right.
They did affect us somewhat because sugar was short supply.
That's what Flory was saying.
Yeah, my dad had bees. So we had honey for sweetening.
Now, you were so self-sufficient. Were people kind of knocking at your door?
No, everyone was doing the same thing.
Oh, they were.
Although my uncle said in the towns things were very different.
Right.
They were suffering.
Right.
We had our own meat. Coffee we didn't have, but we sometimes roasted wheat and used that as a substitute.
Right.
Gas was a big problem, gasoline, because it was in such short supply you couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
And if you took a farm truck down to the lake, for instance, you're liable to meet the RCMP, and they would fine you for using it unnecessarily.
Right. Was there bootlegging that went on in this area?
Oh, yeah.
Yes?
I don't know how much was going on here. I guess maybe Ray can tell you. Or maybe he can't, I don't know.
But Ray's pleading the fifth on this one.
In the areas I lived in, it was very common.
Right.
Yeah, homemade.
I think it was one of those things that was very common and nobody talked about it, and that occasionally even the RCMP knew how common it was because they were some of the recipients. So
Oh,
the
right.
proverbial blind eye always
Uh-huh.
always got turned. Those are
Yeah,
the
that's
stories.
true.
Yeah, those are the stories.
Yeah, there were a
about-
lot of stories that came out of that.
Right. What do you think about the state of farming now? How it's changed?
I decided a long time ago that I didn't want to be a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to work for my dad the rest of my life,
Mm-hmm.
or his life.
Right.
So I stayed away from it. But I did work on farms quite a bit.
But you admire the advancement of technology. You
Yes.
think it's generally a good thing.
Yes. On the other hand, the economy is not what it used to be.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. So we've made advancements, yet
Yeah, there are
isn't
drawbacks.
right. What was I going to ask you? As a teacher, as a history teacher, how concerned were you at that time and even now that the new generation coming up isn't as interested in preserving? I mean, you probably don't have grade 12 kids that are sitting on the board to keep the flour mill afloat.
I was very concerned about the lack of interest.
Yeah.
We used to make trips up to Batoche every year,
Uh-huh.
one class of the high school, to learn a little bit more about that time.
Right.
And I took classes to the legislature in Regina.
Right.
So, yeah, we tried hard to bring about some interest, and I think we did.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I had a very poor student of mine come back about 10 years later and tell me that he was interested in Canadian history because of what he had learned in school.
That must have felt gratifying.
Yes, particularly when I thought he hadn't ever been listening to me.
Well, yeah, well, but that's very common. It's often those people that end up being the one most influenced.
True enough.
Yeah. Were any of the young students involved in writing of the history book?
No.
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 They have access to it, though, yeah?
Oh, definitely,
Right.
yes.
Is the flour mill on the touring circuit for these kids that are going to school here? They brought.
I don't know.
History? Ralph will
you
probably
know,
know
but
that.
They're
Yeah.
invited. There's always an open
Yeah.
invitation. It's the teacher's choice as to whether or not they.
Right. You stayed in this province all your life.
All my life, yeah.
Why? I mean, when so many people choose to move elsewhere, what is it about Saskatchewan that you love?
I really like Saskatchewan, and it's got a great deal more variety than visitors realize.
Yeah.
One of the, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but one of the anomalies of this province is that they ran the railway and the number one highway through the flattest part of the whole province.
It's true, and that's what you tend to associate.
Yes, people
Right.
drive through Saskatchewan and say, there's nothing to see.
No, you're quite
Yeah.
right. You're quite right.
I lived in the Cypress Hills area.
Right, which is
I
stunning.
just love that.
Yeah, really beautiful. Yeah, and so you had never had any desire to run away to the big city.
Well, there were jobs available here.
Right.
That's what drew most of the people away to the cities.
Yeah.
And having grown up on the farm, I really didn't want to go to the city. I didn't even want to teach in town,
Right.
although I did when I went into high school.
Right.
But they were always small towns.
Yeah. Ray,
Yeah.
Yeah, your turn.
let's turn the mic on you a little bit. Tell me a bit about yourself. Were you born in Esterhazy?
I was born in Hazelcliff, which is about 9 miles away from here.
Okay.
And I lived all my life right around Hazelcliff and Esterhazy.
Right.
I quit school in 1947,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked on the farm. And in about 1960, we bought my grandfather's farm.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, we were just living 4 miles away.
Right.
We bought my grandfather's homestead farm. He had homesteaded in 1889,
Wow.
and Dad tells the story that Dad, Grandpa like, came in March. He said Mom came in June, and I came in August. of 1889.
Wow.
And there was two brother-in-laws. I married your sister and you married mine. Grandpa Bradley
Right.
and Grandpa Delmage. So that was the connection. I married your sister and you married mine.
Right.
And they came together in 1889, and the railroad had only come as far as Mooseman then, and they walked to where we were at Hazelcliff. I don't know how many days it took them. It's about a 40-mile walk.
Right.
And then they took up homesteads there on Section 32. One of them took the east quarter and the other took the west.
Right.
And the story is they built a house the first summer, and then the women came out and they lived together in this house the first summer, and then they built another house on the other quarter the next summer.
Right.
And I stayed there until I retired 4 years ago and moved into Esterhazy.
Right.
I was on Grandpa's farm from 47 till, 4 years ago was 1910, I guess.
Yeah.
Or 2010.
Yeah, 2010. Yeah, right.
And
So did the farm get handed off to another family member?
no, it didn't.
Oh, so you
It
sold
was
the farm.
Yes, the homestead farm.
Right.
It was, we got the 100-year plaque in
Yes.
99.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That must have felt like
Yes.
a great pride, yeah.
But no, it was sold to another.
Now,
Yeah.
was it a working farm right up until the time you sold it?
Yes, and still is.
It still is.
Yeah.
And what would have been the major focus of your farm when you were there?
What?
I mean, did you have cattle?
Oh, yes,
and
we had
so-
lots of cattle, wheat,
Right,
oats,
right.
and barley, and flax, and
Right.
rape, and cattle.
Right. Were there the trying times farming? I mean, you must have a constitution to just be able to weather the worst of conditions. How do you?
Yes. When I was like Jim here, I was just too young to go to the war.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I stayed on the farm, and well, I guess there was trying times, but we didn't seem to think it was terrible.
Right.
No.
But also, just from an economy point of view, were there times when people weren't just buying what you were selling?
That's true. And I know my mother will get eggs, and she'd take them to town, which was closer than Esterhazy, with the horse and cart, and 7 miles it was, and sell these eggs and trade them for sugar and things that we didn't have on the farm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it came down to trade at that point.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
When did the railway finally come through?
About 1905.
Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's gone again now.
Yeah.
The railway.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's
coming. It's gone.
Yeah.
Did you have rather colorful folk growing up in your town? Were there any folklore or legends about any of the more colorful people living in town? Did you have a Stiffy the Undertaker?
No, I can't think of anything right now. But
What did you do to entertain yourself on the farm?
well, same thing as he did. Softball was a pretty big thing.
Because probably didn't have TV.
No,
Right.
TV.
Yeah.
Not for a long time.
Right.
Mostly never a radio either.
Well, we
Mostly
had the
a
radio, and I remember the neighbors used to come over to listen to Amos and Andy on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we were one of the first families to get a radio. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Really? So.
Yeah. But he says Stockholm had a good ball team. We had a good ball team too.
Yeah.
You never competed against each other?
No, I don't
obviously.
think so.
No.
It's too far apart.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Well, you wouldn't think so now.
Yeah,
but then
no,
it was, right?
but it was. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
too far apart. Stockholm was a long way away.
Well, we used to go to the neighboring school.
Yeah.
Dad would drive the smaller kids in this car, and the older kids would take the bikes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we'd go at most 5-6 miles.
Right.
Yeah.
When did you get a car?
29. we had a 29 Whippet. I don't know just what year that would be that we got that. Probably into the 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there things knowing what you came up through and what you had to make do with, and do you think that this generation could weather the hardship of the Depression and the war going through that now?
I don't think they could. Sometimes when you tell them what you did, they said, "Well, what'd you do it for?"
Right.
Well, we did it to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of time for navel gazing back then, looking at yourself and saying, "How am I affected by this? Is this really my calling in life?" People weren't talking like that.
No.
Was it common to leave school and work on the farm? Or
Yes, it was.
Right.
Yeah.
and that's just because
Well-
why? You tell me why. There wasn't a pressure to finish school?
No, I guess there wasn't, and not like me and my older brother Lauren. We stayed on the farm, and then the other two younger boys went to school,
Right.
and they went through
Right.
university, and
Right.
yeah.
You think you probably learned a lot more stuff that you wouldn't have learned in school working on the farm.
Well, yes,
A lot more life lessons.
Yes,
Right.
yes, that's
Survival
right.
lessons.
Yeah.
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 When you see all the technology that's
Well,
advanced since then.
even in the last 10 years,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
technology is terrible.
Right. What do you think in your lifetime, what would you say is the most significant invention, the invention that's had the most positive effect?
Well, I think about hydraulics. It was one of the
Right.
best things that ever
Right.
happened.
That's
Every
interesting.
machine is hydraulics is the big feature on every machine now.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first got your first
Yes,
hydraulics machine?
we had the power lift, and we thought that was a good thing.
Right. Right.
Till it got full of grease, and then
Right.
But then hydraulics came about, well, I guess in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can think? What about you? Do you think there's anything the most? I mean, you're a historian. What do you think is the most significant?
For farming, I would have to agree with Ray on that.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember the old power lift.
Yeah.
Right.
It didn't work very well.
No.
And in a lot of cases, you did it by hand.
Yeah.
You raised the
Implement badly with the
table.
lever.
Yeah.
Right.
The binder table had to come up with a great big lever.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense that the technology that had the biggest impact on your life was on the farm.
Yeah.
Are there things that you see that have been developed that you kind of shake your head and say, that we can do without?
Well, I'd say hydraulics, that was in my time, but now I guess.
And not necessarily even farming.
No. Well, GPS and everything now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that has only happened in the last 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think we rely too much on technology now? I mean, you guys had to rely on your smarts.
Yeah.
You actually had to
I
rely.
guess maybe you do. We do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of the flour mill
Yes.
around here? Tell me about those.
I all did. Well, that would be in about somewhere around 48, 49. I quit school in 47, so, and I hauled grain to the mill with horses. About 25 or 30 bushels, I think, was what we hauled.
And how long would that trek have taken you?
Oh, about 2 hours,
Right.
3 hours. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you'd bring the grain, they'd weigh how much grain you had.
Yes, and then
Right.
they'd hoist it up and dump it, and then you'd get your flour. It seems to me that we got about 12 bags of flour out of 25 or 30 bushels of wheat.
Is that right?
And then we would take maybe 2 bags home and let them store the rest at the mill here.
Right.
And we let them keep the mice out of it.
Right. Right. So how much would that kind of service cost? How much would it cost you to bring?
I
the
don't
grain?
think very much. It was more or less a trade.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And some of the flour that they would store here, could they sell?
No.
Is that part of the bargain?
No,
No.
no,
They stored it for you.
Yes, you were. Maybe we brought in extra bushels of wheat to pay for the gristing. I think we did.
Right.
Yes.
So that maybe.
And
just
yeah.
put in what we were told is that you got half.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah,
Right.
it might be.
Sounds reasonable.
I don't think
you
it-
got to take
yeah.
home half.
Right.
I don't think it cost us very much dollars.
All right.
We traded
The cost, yeah.
wheat for the flour and the.
And with the half that you took home,
Yeah.
what would that be kept just for yourself, or were you
yes.
also right?
Oh yes,
So-
and we'd get porridge, whatever, the wheat meal with
Wheat bran.
wheat bran and so on, and we'd take a few bags of bran and shorts to feed the pigs too.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know out of that 25 or 30 bushels, well, how much come off the top for expenses and how much was gristed.
Right.
But I think we got about 12 or around 12 bags of flour. And we were living in a 2-story house, and you had to carry that 100 bags of flour upstairs. And 100 pounds of flour, it doesn't carry very easy. It's so darn floppy.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Who was the bread maker in your family?
Well, I guess Dad. Yeah.
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 And was it common for people to have bakeries on their own property? Would you have bake sales and things like that? I mean,
No,
No.
just pretty well for our own use.
everybody was pretty self-sufficient.
Yes.
There wasn't a need to go. There weren't people on the other side of the tracks that were the have-nots. Everybody.
No, everybody was in the same boat.
Right.
Yeah, but Mom just used the flour for baking and bake bread once a week.
Right. Flory was telling me about she had some memories around Halloween. Did you guys celebrate Halloween growing up?
Yeah, but not that much.
Right.
We didn't do anything bad.
Right. What was Christmas like on the farm?
Everybody would come home and
Yeah.
we'd go over to Grandma and Grandpa's or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It must have been very magical. It's kind of the hallmark Christmases that we think of.
Yes.
It was a lot to eat.
A lot to eat.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a big thing. And
Yeah.
neighbors would come over, and we would go over there during Christmas holidays.
Right. I often wondered that the neighbor, because I'm from Nova Scotia, so the farming villages are stacked up one on top of each other.
Yeah.
But when you're driving through the prairies and you see these huge farmlands, and there's one house, and then you drive and drive and drive, and then yet they call each other neighbors. Do you have a sense of?
Well, in our day,
Yeah.
the farmers were a lot closer together.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
where you have 5 farms today, there were 20 or more.
Oh.
Yes, that's right.
So the lots were
So, yeah.
smaller.
Oh yes.
Oh, yeah, there were a lot of quarter and
section
half.
and half section farms.
Right.
Yeah.
So you truly had neighbors.
You were asking Jim about bootleggers and stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. My mom and dad they didn't drink, and that was all there was to it. And there was nothing. And we were brought up that we didn't drink either.
Right. Was that rare for folks in your town? I mean, was it?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
No.
That's upstanding of you.
Well, one factor, of course, is that we couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't have cash to buy
No,
beer
no,
in town even.
No.
Right.
So it was special occasion only.
Yes. Jim said about baking the wheat to make. We ate that wheat to make porridge, and we did too. The same thing. Baked some wheat in the oven. Yeah.
And roasted wheat to make
Yes.
coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever get sick of wheat after a while? I mean,
I don't know what else was there.
right.
That's right.
What was the alternative?
Right. Apart from, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you mentioned Christmas.
Yeah.
The big occasion for us was the Christmas concert.
Yes.
Because we prepared for that. We were told that we could start preparing when the first permanent snow hit the ground.
Right.
And that was
Which would have been what? August?
November. Not likely. So, we had a big concert. It was great affair for us.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
chance to act and
Yeah.
get some candy too.
Yeah.
Did you reenact the nativity scene with real farm animals?
No,
No.
no,
I often wondered if that's what folks on the farm did.
no, they never did have animals in our hall.
Right.
Well, that's not true. I played a piano solo for the Christmas concert one year.
Oh.
I worked hard in learning it. I can't play the piano anymore.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, did you
No.
continue playing?
And I just got well started on the minuet in G, actually.
Uh-huh.
And a dog wandered on stage. So it had followed somebody to the hall and come in the back door. And it came up on the stage and wandered around my legs. And I lost track of the song.
Of course.
And I had to stop and start over again. And it wandered around some more and came back underneath my legs. And finally, I just hit a couple of loud chords, and that was the end of the song.
We call that upstaging.
Yes.
You were upstaged by an animal. There's a rule of thumb: never work with children or animals. For that exactly. You didn't keep piano up, but did you? Did
No.
you stay musical at all?
My mother was a piano teacher.
Oh, so you pretty much had to, right?
Yeah, but
Right.
after that,
Right.
no, I didn't.
But as an adult, no,
No.
no. Inclined to listen to music though.
Oh, I
mean,
love listening to music. Yes.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Are there musical groups in this in
Yes.
Esterhazy?
This was a great town for dance bands.
Oh, really?
All around this area.
Yeah. Big bands.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, some of them. And of course, there was a brass band at Stockholm,
Yeah.
and here there was the Bohemian band.
Yeah.
What does a Bohemian band play?
Old time music.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was quite a mixture of instruments, I think.
Right.
Brass instruments as
Right.
well.
Ray, did you grow up musical at all? Were you forced to play anything?
I did play a trumpet after I quit school. I was in a band and played the trumpet and for a couple of years, but it looked to me the guys down there were having more fun than I was, so I sold the trumpet, and now I wish I had it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Preferred the girls to the
Yeah,
trumpet.
that's what
Right.
yeah.
You would have grown up during a time when there weren't a lot of vaccines and there were a lot of illnesses that were rampant. Did they affect any of your towns? Were there health concerns in your day?
In the 50s, polio went through,
Right.
and quite a few people were affected. Mostly not very heavily,
No.
Right.
but I find out now that it's come back to haunt
true.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a boat with scarlet fever. I remember that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And did you lose any?
No, we didn't.
Right.
but No.
Right.
Very sick.
Right.
Yeah.
And measles.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Were there crazy home remedies back then? I mean,
Sulfur and molasses, for instance.
For mustard plaster.
mustard
Yes.
plaster right
Yeah.
on the chest.
Yeah.
What was the sulfur and molasses for?
I think it was intended as a tonic.
Right.
You
For
know, if
whatever
you're looking
ails you.
pale or whatever, yeah.
Whatever ails you.
Cod liver oil was a big one.
Right. Yeah.
And we had wild strawberry for
Right.
constipation, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
We hated all of them.
What do you think? Back then, your cattle wouldn't have been dealing with all the, ingesting all the hormones and everything in the
No.
feed. What do you think about that now? I mean, it's such a controversial subject. Now we're seeing farming become organic and we've got free range and hormone free. It's incredibly expensive to shop that way.
Yes, it's really increased the price.
Right.
And I don't know that it's made any great difference.
Right. Ray, have you lived outside of Saskatchewan at all? Have you stayed
No.
here all your life?
Lived within 10 miles of Esterhazy.
Right. So going to a big town would just be like fingernails on a chalkboard to you?
Yeah, that's
Is
right.
that right?
I hate it.
Like, what would you like? Regina would be
Oh, yeah, I
would
go
be
to
your
January.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
But-
But go down to Toronto or Montreal.
right.
I've been there, but get back home again.
What is it about Saskatchewan that keeps us here?
Well, I don't know. I guess it is the room. We have room.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the people, perhaps.
Yes.
Right.
You know, you have good neighbors, you have people helping each other.
Yeah. Is this a neighborhood? Is this a town where everybody knows everyone?
Pretty well.
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty much.
Well, the last couple of years, there's a lot of workers coming back and forth that we don't know, but
Right.
but mostly we know everybody.
When did the two of you become acquainted?
Oh, just
Recently,
recently, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose we're kind of related by marriage.
Yes. Yeah.
How so?
Yeah. But like I say, Stockholm was a long way away.
Right. So what's the marriage connection?
Oh, my second cousin is married to his
My brother. Yeah.
Oh, right.
so it's distant.
Oh,
But I think there were some other relationships with
Yeah.
Delmages.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah. But as you say, your two towns growing up would have been
No.
Quite far apart.
Far
Right.
apart.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about life down this part of the world that you can think of?
We used to go to Esterhazy or Town to dances, but we never went to Stockholm because it was too far.
And we used to go to Dubuque,
Oh, yeah.
Grayson.
Yeah.
And you would get there by
Oh, by then it was by car.
by car.
But I came to Esterhazy quite a few dances with horses.
Is that right?
In the winter time, we'd have a van with a stove in it and take off for the dance.
Were winters just as harsh then as they are now?
I think so.
Yeah.
And roads we didn't have any roads.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In 1947, we had drifts that covered the telephone poles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we didn't travel much.
No, I'm sure not. Every time when you think,
You put your car away if you had one. You put it away the first time it got cold because there wasn't antifreeze.
right,
No.
right. So you pretty much hunkered down for the winter.
Yeah.
And there was no internet.
No.
Did
no.
you have phone by then?
Oh yeah, we had phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Party line.
Oh, right, the good
Yeah.
old party line.
Yeah, you knew what was happening in the neighborhood.
Yeah. and just-
That was the
just
source
listen
of
on the phone.
entertainment, I think.
Yeah.
Just listen in.
One of our neighbors had a big clock beside the phone, so you always knew when she was listening.
Oh, Big Ben would go off.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Well, like I say, the kids now, when you tell them this, well, why'd you do it?
Right,
Yeah, why'd you do it? Well, there was no alternative.
right. It was survival.
Yeah,
But in winter, we'd go out skiing and snowshoeing.
yeah,
Right.
tobogganing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have a hill within
Oh,
20 miles.
Well, we lived right on the banks of the Coupelle,
Right.
our first farmland.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful area.
Yeah.
Really beautiful area.
Did you dig holes in the side of drifts and make
Oh,
little
yeah,
houses?
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I used to do that, and inevitably somebody's would fall in with them inside.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it could be disastrous.
Right, right.
But it wasn't a bad life. We've had a good life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's as you say, you knew nothing else but,
Yes.
so you didn't feel like you were
No.
without.
No,
Right.
no.
And
And
so you feel satisfied looking back. It feels like a
Yes,
very
yeah,
full.
Yeah.
The big thing was that we entertained ourselves.
Yes.
We
yeah.
didn't have organized sports really,
Right,
like they have now.
right, right.
Like our grandchildren driving 100 miles to a hockey game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we found lots of things to do.
Yeah.
So there's joy to be found in simplicity.
Yes,
definitely.
that's right. I enjoy scenery and the mountains, and
Mm-hmm.
I made quite a few trips west.
Right.
In fact, this morning I just got off the phone from organizing a trip on this CN train, this Canadian,
Yeah.
through the mountains. And so we're booked that now.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you don't need much to make you happy.
I love to sit in the veranda during a heavy rainstorm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I like the sounds and the smell and everything.
It's great to know that sometimes that's enough.
Yes.
You know, that's entertainment in and of itself.
Yeah.
Thank you both for sharing a little piece of your life.
You're
with
welcome.
me.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. The SaskScapes podcast is created by Kevin Power as part of the Culture Days Animateur program operated by Sask Culture. Funding to the cultural sector is provided through the Saskatchewan Lotteries Trust Fund for Sports, Culture and Recreation. If you want to hear more of these podcasts or to see the great work being done by other Sask Culture animateurs, please visit www.iheartculture.ca. Special thanks to Paved Arts in Saskatoon for their technical support. Music for SaskScapes is provided by Saskatchewan-born singer-songwriter Jeffrey Straker. There is no end to the stories to be told. So, until next time,